Okay, so session 10. Navigation and restricted visibility. Okay, so basically talk about restricted visibility. Precautions, limitations imposed by fog. And then we'll talk about the marine environment as a general whole. So let's start with restricted visibility. It is defined as two vessels not in sight of one another. So basically what it means, so this is a fog bank rolling in at Lake Michigan. You could have anything in the fog and you can still be right here in the sunshine. So if you're anywhere near restricted visibility, so literally there could be a ship in there and you wouldn't know. Well, unlikely on Lake Michigan, but there could be other yachts. Okay, so types of visibility, obviously fog and mist. Heavy rain. If you think about heavy rain, it actually reduces your visibility massively. Okay. And it's usually accompanied by severe weather of some description. So heavy rain can reduce visibility, not just with your ability to be able to see a distance, but obviously if you're on a vessel with a windshield, it reduces it there, and via just rain in your face. And people like me who wear glasses, well, we got double whammy. So there you go. Snowfall. Has anybody sailed in snow yet? Because if you do sail in snow, it's the best time to check your trim.
Just the once.
The snow actually goes across your sails like being in a wind tunnel, and you can actually see your trim perfectly from a wind tunnel aspect. However, it can create full whiteouts. You can get to the point where, I mean, I've got to the point where I haven't been able to see the front of the boat. So it can be very, very dangerous. Sandstorms. We sailed around the northern part of Africa. You get them there, you know, Gibraltar, going down that coast. You get big sandstorms that go into the sea. They are very, very, very dangerous. Avoid them at all costs. If you are stuck on deck in a sandstorm, cover yourself up with as much as you possibly can, because on land they'll rip your skin off, at sea they'll rip everything off. Keep your boat closed, keep as many of the crew below as possible, and literally cover up 100%, because that sand just literally works as sandpaper. It's not nice. Then you got obviously smoke, normal smoke. A lot of us saw it when we went around Australia. And then you got what they call sea smoke, which is like a low mist, but it's got its own little term, sea smoke. So this picture here is actually sea smoke. And then obviously severe weather. There's a nice southerly buster coming on the east coast of Australia, and some poor bloke beating away into it there. It's a lovely photograph, but you know what's going to happen in about an hour's time. In about half an hour's time, this guy's going to be in 70 knots of breeze. And any other phenomena that restricts your ability to see other vessels at sea. So this is a nice photograph of sea smoke. You can stand up and you can probably see way around you, but as soon as you sit down to steer, you can't see. So sea smoke is basically a very, very, very low level mist. Okay, actions, initial actions for restricted visibility. Fix your position. Make sure you've got a position fixed immediately. As soon as you see a fog bank rolling in or something, fix your position. And then make note of any vessels around you, both visibly and electronically, because if you're relying on an AIS and another vessel doesn't have an AIS, you won't see them in a minute or two. Okay, so make sure you fix theirs, and even if it's an approximate fix, okay, he's roughly half a mile off my port bow, then you know where he is roughly at the time. Which way is he heading? That sort of direction. Make note of the vessels around you. Turn on your radar and fix vessels on your radar, on your screen. This is a enemy shot that I've got here, but you can see 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 vessels very distinctly on that screen. Okay, this sort of thing could well be weather. That is 99% chance of a vessel. Suggested with radar, don't make your range too far. 6 miles is plenty. You make it too far, your blips become very, very small. So 6 miles is plenty in restricted visibility. Obviously, if your AIS is not on, it's your automatic identification system, turn that on and fix any vessels that you think might be on a collision course. So this would be a nightmare screen if you go into a restricted visibility. Okay, make ready for hand steering and immediate maneuvering if you are using an autopilot or some sort of self-steering system. Make sure you're ready for hand steering. Okay. In this case, your crew obviously need to kit up to be on deck. Take it into account. Okay, what are the conditions for this restricted visibility? Okay, is it cold like this one? Sandstorm? Is it going to be foggy? Give the crew enough time to get their gear on and make sure they're going to be warm and dry, because they could well be up there for a while. So make sure you get ready for hand steering. Make the engine ready. You know, make sure it fires up, all that sort of thing. Take into account that certain throttles need a handle inserted. So this is like a winch handle type fitting. Now, if that's stashed below and you've been sailing for 3 or 4 days and you don't know where it is, make sure you found it and got it on deck so you can maneuver immediately. They're wonderful throttles. They work really, really well. Post lookouts. Okay. Have lookouts outside. Up on the bow, really good place for a lookout. Make sure they've got communication. Obviously have your foghorn ready. Make sure you're aware of your correct signal. Am I a sailing vessel? Am I a power-driven vessel? For fixed systems, you obviously have to test them reasonably regularly. That's a fixed system foghorn on a mast. HS systems have a wonderful ability. You can literally program them to say, every 2 minutes, broadcast this fog signal. Then you don't have to worry about actually doing it manually. Okay, so it produces the correct fog signal in restricted visibility, provided you obviously have a foghorn built in. If you have something like that, make sure your crew knows how to use it, how it works. It's all very good having a really good system. Now you're trying to be on deck controlling things, and you've got to be below trying to sort electronics out. Make sure your crew understand how these systems work. Okay? Have a vessel-vessel communication system ready. That means often taking a handheld up on deck with you, you know, just having it ready. You know, the guy watching the radar says, we've got a vessel coming in, it's called this, from the AIS, something like that. You can call and then have conversations with other vessels in restricted visibility. Obviously, you know, safety gear for the crew. Now here comes the big debate, and I'll leave you guys to have a think about it. Is it safer for your crew to be clipped on during restricted visibility? Because if they go over the side, well, you'll never find them. The AIS system does help. Or is it safer for them not to be clipped on in case they've got to get off the vessel very, very quickly because something happens in restricted visibility? You can have a think about it. In my opinion, I'd rather have my crew clipped on, but there is a debate going on specifically about restricted visibility. In extreme conditions, have your grab bags ready on deck. Have your life rafts ready for deployment. Okay. You might well only have a few seconds. If your vessel drives into you, drives you over, something like that, yachts sink very, very, very quickly, especially monohulls, if they cracked right through. It took, when America's Cup boat Foster's snapped in half just because of too much back pressure on the rig. There's a great piece of footage actually. The guy down below who was packing the spinnaker just came running up, leaped over the back and just dived over the back. Because when the boat cracked, everybody looked up, not down. It took under 3 minutes for the mast to disappear below the water on that boat. It flooded and sank that quickly. So if something like that happens to you, you want to have your grab bags ready. There you got a nice ship coming along. You can see him just appearing out of the fog. Back end is completely still vanished. Okay, so ColRegs Rule 19 is restricted visibility. Okay, so when does this rule apply? This rule applies exactly the same as the beginning, with two vessels not in sight of one another when navigating in or near an area of restricted visibility. That's 19A. So, as I said, if you're near a fog bank, you actually fall under Rule 19. This applies to all vessels at sea. Being smaller, we need to take extra care. Even the vessel on this picture could sink us very quickly. Okay, Rule 19B. Okay. Every vessel shall proceed at a safe speed adapted to the prevailing circumstances and conditions of restricted visibility. A power-driven vessel shall have her engines ready for immediate maneuver. What does all that mean? It means that I'll often stick my engine on just in case. Even when I'm sailing along happily, your restricted visibility, you're doing 6 knots, say, there's no harm in being ready. Just run your engine. It can tick over. All it's gonna do is charge the batteries in the meantime. So therefore, you are ready for maneuver. Remember, because we are smaller, we can get out of the way a hell of a lot quicker than big ships. So in my opinion, I would move for a big ship in restricted visibility, even if I'm the stand-on vessel. Okay? So sometimes discretion is the better part of valor. So even if you're the stand-on vessel, it'd be worth calling the giveaway vessel, the big ship, say, and then get out of his way. But you must call. He needs to know what your actions are. Okay? The radio call is very important because you are the stand-on vessel and then you do something outside of the ColRegs Rule 19, which he's not expecting. As soon as you get hold of him, okay, so you're going to cross in front of this guy here. And he's stand-on, you're sailing. I would call him up and say, listen, we will tack to go behind you. You please hold your course and speed. And he will say, thank you very much, and just hold his course and speed. You can do that with pleasure. If you're going to break a rule, there's no harm in breaking a rule, provided the other vessel has a very good idea of what you're doing, and calling them on the radio is by miles the easiest. Okay, number C. Every vessel shall have due regard to the prevailing circumstances and conditions of restricted visibility when complying with the rules of Section 1 of this part. Now, what does that mean? That's just gibberish to everybody else. So to put it normally, when navigating in restricted visibility, Rule 19 is not the only rule for part. So your steering and sailing rules still apply. Okay? Which means rules 4 to 10 apply. If you are on port, you are the giveaway vessel. If you are on starboard, you are the stand-on vessel, etc., etc. All these rules still apply. Okay? All of them come to the point of avoiding collisions or close quarter situations. So that's all that this section C means. You've got to take this whole section into account. Okay. Now we've got a little bit of things here where it's about radar only. A vessel which detects by radar alone. That's the key here. Okay. That means you haven't heard him. You're not quite sure where he is. Okay. And if you determine that there's a close quarter situation appearing, the following action can be done, and as far as possible, the following shall be avoided. Note the word avoided. An alteration of course to port for a vessel forward of the beam, other than if you're overtaking, because if you're overtaking, you probably had a conversation with him anyway. So you can only turn to starboard if you pick up a vessel forward of your beam. Now this is radar alone, remember, eh? This is not normal sailing. An alteration, of course, towards a vessel which is abaft or abeam. So if you've got a vessel here, anywhere between there and there, you will avoid turning to port. You will only turn to starboard. If you have a vessel between there and there, it's the only time you turn to starboard if you think there's a close quarter situation developing. Okay, so this rule's specific. Number D, it's for radar contact alone. Okay, and it's only if you're developing a risk of collision. Otherwise, if there's no risk of collision, you would hold your course and speed. Okay, so this is the diagram for big ships. Okay, so it's slightly more complicated than the one we've got, but it gives you roughly the same thing. These first quarters here, you only turn to starboard. This bottom corner here, you only turn to port. Okay, the reason theirs is slightly different is because look at the distances. 4 to 6 miles, escape to 3 miles. We wouldn't look at escaping at a 3-mile distance from a ship, would we? It doesn't make any sense for us to escape that early. But if you're a super tanker, or even if you're just a big vessel, you need to think about these things miles ahead. Okay. E. Except where it has been determined that the risk of collision does not exist. So in other words, this is only for periods where there might be a risk of collision. Every vessel which hears apparently forward of a beam a fog signal of another vessel. Now, to reiterate that little bit, you can quite often be standing in fog, hear a foghorn, and actually have no bloody clue where it's coming from. The sound seems to come from everywhere. So it needs to be forward of the beam. So if your guy on the bow, your lookout, says, I'm pretty sure there's somebody forward of the beam, okay, which you can't avoid a close quarter situation, forward of the beam, you can reduce speed in answer to Trussam's question. And if that's not good enough, take all way off and just stop until the danger is over. Sound signals. Now, I haven't gone through lights and all that sort of thing, okay? But with restricted visibility, these are ones you really just want to know off the top of your head. So the sound signals for restricted visibility, it's Rule 35. In or near, okay, the following sound signals will be used. A power-driven vessel making way is 1 prolonged blast every 2 minutes. Okay. We are a power-driven vessel the moment we engage our gear. Whether our head sail and mainsail is still up, it doesn't matter. The moment you engage that throttle, forward or astern, we become a power-driven vessel. So therefore, we would then have 1 prolonged blast. If you stop, it becomes 2 prolonged blasts, provided you are using your engine. Okay, So 1, prolonged blast, you've got a moving power vessel. 2, you've got a stationary power vessel. And these are done, all of them are done every 2 minutes, under 2 minutes. Okay. C is basically all other vessels, not under command, restricted ability to maneuver, constrained by a draft, sailing vessel, vessels engaged in fishing, vessels engaged in towing or pushing, or all these other vessels. Again, every 2 minutes, 1 prolonged blast followed by 2 short blasts. So we're sailing along happily in fog, 1 prolonged blast followed by 2 short. To give you an idea, a prolonged blast should be around between 3 to 5 seconds, a short 1 to 2. Okay, tips for restricted visibility. There's a great shot of a ship in clear air, a yacht, and there's a ship just appearing out of it. So you can be really close together and still not see each other. Okay, so tips. Always wake the skipper, without question. It doesn't matter whether he's just gone off watch, you always wake your skipper. The responsibility for the skipper, the responsibility for the vessel lies with the skipper. Okay, and in restricted visibility, you always have him up. Plan for the worst. Obvious reasons. Don't be shy to call other vessels. Call them up. They're sitting in exactly the same situation as you are. You can literally call them up on the VHF. And if you don't know what the name of the vessel is, you get on the radio and say, this is sailing vessel whatever. I see a vessel off my port bow. Can you please come in over? You can call them like that. Okay? As smaller sailing vessels, as much as possible for us, keep out of the way. Perfect example is going up the Solent. Okay, there's obviously big ships going up and down the Solent all the time. If you keep yourself in around 5 meters of water, the chances of being hit by a big ship are 0 because he's not going to get that far before he comes to a grinding halt. But you can keep sailing along at 5 liters of water perfectly. So not an issue. Use your crew, guys. You can wake up extra watchers. Get people watching port, starboard, fore and aft. And that means you as skipper or helmsman or whoever, whatever position you're in, can concentrate on other things because you're using your crew. And again, remember, you might be in sunshine, but a big ship can't see you because he's not. So don't assume just because you're still sun tanning with your glasses on that the guy next to you can see you. Most fog banks, especially radiation fog, comes through with a wall in front. It literally just wades in and knocks you. Places where the water is cold, even more so, where you've got cold water and warm land, oh, it's massively thick. And then you go into the marina and you're in a perfectly beautiful day again. And that's literally within the space of half a mile. Put your nav lights on. No harm in having your nav lights on. It might be just bright enough for somebody to see, but please, guys, make sure you use the correct lights. So if you are sailing, tricolor. If you are motoring, then you put your steaming light on, tricolor off, and you put your side lights on, stern light. There's nothing worse than a ship seeing a yacht and they get really irate and he's turned everything on because he wants to be seen. And now nobody knows whether he's a power-driven vessel, a sailing vessel, or just a useless skipper. Okay? Make sure you put your correct lights on.